Hello and welcome back. It is Zach here with more of the weekly update. So, yes, this channel is mostly just science fiction and fantasy reviews, but once a week it is my update of what I've been reading, but also, more importantly, to come later is what I've been watching this past weekend, all the movies and shows. But to first kick things off, what did I read and what did I finish? I finally finally started and finished Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. So, this is a book that, yes, I had been meaning to read forever. I bought it over a year ago at an Audible sale in 2024, sitting in my Audible library forever, just never got around to it, even though you cannot go anywhere on the internet, especially Reddit, and not hear people recommending Dungeon Crawler Carl. And after having read it, I see what the hype is. I definitely give it high marks because it was a book that, yes, honestly, I couldn't put down. It is the first book, and I hope other people will agree that the first book was not perfect by any means. It is very, yes, I guess a little bit cliche that it wasn't like groundbreaking. I feel like I've read this or seen this before. This like isekai world goes crazy, but it was just fun. Yes, the writing is easy. The character is lovable. The character feels a bit like what I thought when I was listening to it was Bruce Campbell. So maybe it was the narrator, but it felt like an Army of Darkness. Like when Carl gets the arm upgrade, I thought he was going to say groovy, like in Army of Darkness or Evil Dead. So he just has that everyman character thrust into the situation, but he makes the best of it. And of course, he's secretly, yes, like an ex-military, so he's great at it, and he just keeps surviving. He meets Princess Donut, and well, not meets Princess Donut, he gets drawn into this with Princess Donut, who becomes talking, and yes, it's fun. But my complaint of and just the character Carl being like a little bit cliche is that the first book, there was a lot of descriptions of items and stats and mobs and weapons. And I think maybe this is just be a first book syndrome thing that, yes, we're getting introduced to the dungeon world. So there is a lot of world building and laying out the rules of the dungeon and what is going on. But that would think with the only detraction, or maybe it was listening versus reading, because you have to hear the narrator talk about all these stats and the power ups and what is going in and the menus, and maybe it just works slightly better. But I know people do love the audiobook, and yes, the audio narration was great. Loved all the voices and sound effects. So I think it's just going to get better, and maybe my appreciation for the series will grow as we go on into the next book. So I will be looking forward to continuing Dungeon Crawler Carl and the series in the future. But what did I read is another series. So after Dungeon Crawler Carl, I am back to the world of the Sun Eater with book 3, Demon in White by Christopher Ruocchio. So this book I am chugging my way through as well. I also cannot put it down, but for slightly different reasons. But Demon in White is great. I am really digging this. I thought book 1 was great. It was a little bit setupy in Sun Eater book 1. Book 2 was just continued. I thought book 2 was even better. There was just so much world building. We learned about all the other, some of the extra Solarians, some of the thinking machines, all the cool stuff that I loved in book 1 was just amplified in book 2. And so far, I'm not that far into it. I'm like 30%, but book 3 is just great. We're at the battle right now already with the Cielsins. So they're taking on the Cielsins, or maybe one of the skirmishes early on, and it's just great. Love being back with the characters, with the crew. We're sort of dealing with the fallout of the previous book, and it's already just ramped up with this fight that we got into and on their rescue mission. And yeah, I'm just absolutely loving Sun Eater. Really, really enjoying my time in this world of the Sun Eater, Chris Roccio's book, and Demon in White. We've already had a couple of indications of what the Demon in White could be referring to, so I'm just holding my judgment whether it's referring to the Cielsins or it's referring to Hadrian, who is the Demon in Black already, but we'll see where this goes. But yeah, really excited to continue Sun Eater. And now the segment of, yes, what I really want to talk about in this series is what we've been watching. So we watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movies this weekend. So a lot of great cinema on, in addition to continuing TV series, which I'll talk about in a second. But what did we watch? We kicked things off with Rental Family, the 2025 version. So this is the American remake. If you note, if you're a regular watcher, that we watched the original Japanese version a couple of weeks back, the 2023, which the Japanese version was a bit more of like a documentary style where they're interviewing the owner of the rental family agency. So we see the story of what the rental family agency is doing through his lens as sort of the owner operator. And here in the American version, we focus more, of course, on the actor, on Brendan Fraser, and he adds a different dimension to the story because he's an outsider playing the part. So instead of like a Japanese playing a father for a Japanese, it is a American playing Japanese, like a father for a mixed child. So we have a different dynamic. We focus more on the characters. I don't know if it's a different experience. I think it's honestly better. I enjoyed the storytelling style a bit more in the American version, as it felt it had a bit of a more of a narrative arc. Whereas the first one was, again, it's maybe wrong to compare them apples to apples. The first one was more of a documentary style, so it was a different style of film versus the remake. The American version is trying to weave it into a more overarching story and using the vehicle of the rental family agency as the storytelling vehicle. So we still learn about the rental family as a cultural thing in Japan, as a way to deal with mental health issues. And we see a couple of vignettes where Brendan Fraser's character takes on a few different jobs that, like the original, that we do follow a couple like plot points as the main focus, like yes, the girl that he is being the father for, but we learn a bit more about him as a character and his acting aspirations and how he finds satisfaction in acting as a rental family member. We see the other members of the rental family agency play more prominent roles, which are they're from I was looking up, they're all from a lot from Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, which I love. No, it's not Anna Sawai, the main character from Monarch, but we have Takahiro Hira, who is in Monarch, in Shogun, and he was the main character in, you ever watch it? I watched it ages ago, like pre-COVID, with Giri Haji, but he's the agency owner. And then you also have Mari Yamamoto, who is from Monarch. She played Anna Sawai's sister in the later episodes of Monarch. So yeah, she was great as the female character, not character, but female rental agency member who did the cheating. It's not a spoiler, but she plays the role where like a male who's having an affair will hire her to apologize. So she offered the apology service. So her character in dealing with working as a rental agency member as well, and how that intertwines with Brendan Fraser's character and his role. So yeah, overall, just really loved Rental Family. I give it high marks. That was a great film. And then what we continued, I guess that was more American one, but we continued on the Letterbox January challenge of Japanuary, and I finished Five's Rewrite. So this was an interesting take. I was, of course, intrigued by the premise. It is a time travel, time loop movie, which is always going to interest me. But the twist is that it's a movie about the book, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. So, but the twist is, without being too spoilery, is that the loop doesn't complete. So if you've heard or just, I mean, there's an anime, there's a live action, I think there's a TV series as well. The Girl Who Leapt Through Time is about, yes, like a time travel loop where the earlier version or the later version comes to talk to the earlier version, and they kind of meet and complete a time travel loop. But this film sort of asks the question of, what if the loop didn't finish and something went wrong? So we delve into that without being too spoilery, but I love the twist. I thought it was really well done. Thought you were watching one thing, and then as the movie went on, it switched things up on you, and then it switched things up on you again and again, and it just kept twisting the story. And overall, it does resolve. And of course, it's time travel, so you can always think that, okay, is this a paradox, a time travel paradox? But I thought it was really well done, and I really enjoyed my time with Rewrite. Next, after Rewrite, we watched another Japanuary, and maybe the lowest movie of the weekend, which was Terra Formars from 2016, directed by Takahashi Miike. So big name director who's directed a bunch of, like, I guess maybe indie sort of Japan films. But Terra Formars, the reason I was interested in it, because yes, the manga is very highly rated. I've read, I think, 3 or 4 just chapters, not volumes, so only delved into it a little bit. I thought the premise was interesting. So the premise is criminals, of course, like a Suicide Squad story. So these criminals from Japan have to get shipped off to Mars in the future they're terraforming Mars, and then with this terraforming project, that the cockroaches have become the dominant predatory species on Mars. So the humans are shipped to Mars to clean up the cockroaches, because as we find out, the cockroaches have mutated to be the alpha predator on Mars. So they're these giant mutant battle cockroaches that our heroes/criminals have to clear before the rest of the terraforming project can continue. And yes, as we learned that the humans were given these special abilities to transform into various insects, and then they use their insect powers to fight the cockroaches. So it's an insect versus insect sort of battle. It's a bit cheesy. Maybe it's a bit of the CGI. It's 2016, so it's not that old, but it is like, yeah, it's 10 years old. But the story was a little flimsy. There's like a plot thread of the evil scientist who's behind all and like a twist, and maybe it works better as a manga, but the live action, I guess it was fun. It was fine, but it wasn't like anything to write home about. But we did watch Terra Formars. And then to kick things back up to movies I'm excited about and very surprised. So maybe the biggest surprise of the weekend, because I think I expected Rental Family to be pretty good, and yes, it was. But the biggest surprise was 2025 Dust Bunny. This movie, yeah, I had not even heard of it, wasn't on my radar. And yes, I'm just a casual viewer of like the Reddit movie subreddit threads and various YouTubers that do movie reviews, but hadn't really heard much about Dust Bunny. And wow, it blew my expectations. It sounded fun. The premise is a girl who has a monster under her bed hires the hitman down the hall to take care of it. With that premise, I thought, okay, this is going to be like sort of a professional where they have that's what it sets up. You have Mads Mikkelsen's character as this assassin, and then you have the little girl, and he's going to somehow take care of the monster under her bed. But the twist is that, yes, it actually is a monster, and there's a bunch of things going on where he's in this sort of John Wick assassin world with Sigourney Weaver. That's the way she plays like the handler in the assassin world to Mads Mikkelsen's character, who is just apartment dweller 5B. So very interesting. And I was honestly just blown away mostly by the cinematography. It just felt really, really well done. I was looking up, it was directed by Brian Fuller, who apparently this is his directorial debut, but he has a large back catalog of TV shows, most notably Pushing Daisies, which is a show that, yes, I've never seen, but have heard of a lot. So if you've ever watched Pushing Daisies or some of his other more recent TV series like Star Trek Discovery and a bunch of other series, yeah, look up his Wikipedia. He has a very impressive resume, but this is his first full-length feature film. And him and the cinematographer, who also Nicole Hirsch Whitaker, I didn't see anything of note that I would recognize in her cinematography like resume. But the cinematography and the directing in this was just top notch. I loved so many shots and the colors and the framing and the characters, use of shadows and creative angles. It was just really, really well done. It was for a directorial debut from a debut filmmaker in the big screen, but he's definitely putting all the things he learned in TV on display here. And maybe he needs to work a little bit on the pacing. If maybe it could have wrapped up a little bit neater at the end, but overall it was, yeah, a really top-notch film. I really enjoyed, surprisingly, Dust Bunny. If they could have gotten a little more budget on the CGI or used practical effects for the monster, it would have been, yeah, like a 10 out of 10. But with that said, I love the character work. The CGI maybe could use a little bit of work, but it was it felt otherworldly. It felt like a fairy tale, but like a horror fairy tale. It was really surprising. So I really surprisingly recommend Dust Bunny for a children's horror action fantasy with Mads Mikkelsen killing people as a assassin. Yeah, it's crazy. It's good. And lastly, to wrap up the weekend, I watched three's *Concrete Utopia. So this one, of course, was on my radar for a while because it was nominated for the Oscars 23 that year. But of course, why it's back on my radar is because it's Lee Byung-hun, we just saw in No Other Choice and other series like Squid Game and the million other things he's been in notably lately, K-pop Demon Hunters. But yes, Lee Byung-hun, who is, yes, No Other Choice, getting all the recognition now as we enter award season. This was his other very highly rated for the year it came out film, Concrete Utopia. It was a disaster movie, so it does have a lot of cliched elements going on. It tells the story of Seoul gets devastated by an earthquake and the people have to survive. So it felt a lot like it could have been a zombie apocalypse movie, or it could have been any number of disaster movies, because as we see in like zombie movies, it's not necessarily the zombies that are the bad people. It's it's the people are people. So this movie takes that idea that people are the bad deciding factor. And it really ramps it up and it plays with that storyline of a disaster film where this apartment complex is the only one standing, and the residents inside sort of close ranks and become that NIMBY, not my backyard. And they have to go through this dilemma of, do we keep the apartment to only apartment owners or outsiders? Do we let them in? Do we have that circular, insular society of who's part of the family in this apartment complex? And Lee Byung-hun's character gets in the mix here, and he becomes the delegate for the apartment. So he shoots up to this leadership role, and yeah, he is center stage. He does great acting. He was a great character in this film. Really enjoyed his performance. And the other two characters were Park Seon-jun and Park Bo-young, two actors that I don't really know, but yes, apparently they're in a bunch of things. So if you know them, but they were the other two kind of male and female sub leads after Park Byung-hun's character. But they were great as the kind of main focus newly married husband and wife team that are sort of the, I don't know if opposing faction, but the counterpoint to his character as the delegate. But interesting, well done. I thought the visuals were also really cool as they go through this ruined Seoul that was destroyed by an earthquake. So you've got this urban environment with buildings destroyed, like a dying earth. No one's coming to save them, so they've got to start fending for themselves, and they make the apartment complex work. And yeah, it's just, I thought it was a really well done film. Really enjoyed it, but yes, a little bit bleak ending. And yes, it went on a little too long, which is a common complaint for me. That why don't they make movies like they used to, like an hour and a half? This was like a little over 2 hours, I think. So I feel like it could have wrapped it up a little bit earlier, but the ending was satisfying. It does provide a nice, just all the plot lines do not converge, but just wrap up nicely. And it ends on slightly hopeful note. So that was a nice touch for a disaster film, but really well done. Really enjoying that. And then to wrap up this talk about what I've been watching, just to briefly talk about TV series, just a top of mind, Fate Strange Fake is really good so far. Episode 3 of that was out this week. Jujutsu Kaisen season 3, episode 3 was lower, because if you've seen episode 3 of JJK season 3, it was Talk no Jutsu. I feel like maybe this is why I tuned out the manga, because this episode was just all about the rules of the culling game. It was a rather boring episode, but I think we'll get back to the plot hopefully soon. But if you're watching Jujutsu Kaisen for the action, this episode was more of a lore dump, and it was just a lot of rules of the game. But I think the lore of JJK is pretty cool. It's got this interesting thing going on, but we want to see Sukuna. We want to see Itadori fighting. So we'll get to that soon. But those are the main things that we're keeping up with. We finished finally season 1 of Spy Family, so really enjoyed season 1 of Spy Family. We end on the high note of Lloyd finally at least meeting Desmond, meeting his target at the end of season 1. Anya was great. On was great. Yor and Lloyd were great. They have that interesting dynamic at the end where, are they really feeling feelings for each other? Definitely seems like Yor is, but then like it was like episode 23 or 24 that Lloyd just switched back to his Twilight mode, and I thought he was developing feelings because that's what we saw with his colleague in the previous episode, but then he turns it into he's this like pure spy mode. So can't tell if there's something there or not. I think we all hope for, because yes, we love Yor and Lloyd, and we love Anya and Bond. We want them to continue as the Spy Family, but we'll see if that develops more in season 2. And then, yes, we'll finally catch up to season 3. So that was Spy Family. Really enjoyed season 1. And Frieren started season 2, so I need to catch up with that. And yeah, that is what is on the horizon for me. What did I miss this week? Any other animes that were new for winter season that we should be keeping up with, that we should try, knowing we like, a lot of shonen stuff. By example, shonen comedies, those are kind of our jam. But do leave those comments. Anything we're watching that we haven't watched lately that is out, we'd love to actually watch that too. So thanks for watching this update, and have a great day. Have a great week. See ya.